I grabbed my car keys from the kitchen counter. Already late. The tiny battery icon on the key fob blinked red dead. Of course it had to happen today. Today of all days. When the state labor inspectors were coming to visit our company, and, as the head of HR, I needed to be there early. I tried prying open the key fob with my nails, but the back wouldn't open. Seriously, I muttered, looking around for a screwdriver. We always kept spare batteries in the top drawer of the living room cabinet. At least we used to. I pulled out the box and dug through old cables, light bulbs, and random screws. No batteries, not even one. A tight wave of frustration twisted in my chest. I didn't have time for this. Maybe Daniel had some in his toolbox out on the balcony. He always kept random stuff out there: screwdrivers, wires, duct tape, things he barely used, but insisted were essential. I slid open the balcony door and shivered at the sharp morning air. The small cabinet sat in the corner, dusty and stuffed full of tools. I yanked open a drawer and it nearly came off the tracks, spilling everything across the floor: electrical tape, loose screws, and measuring tape. But no batteries. But something else stood out. A plain blue notebook, the kind you can get at any convenience store, only it didn't belong there. Daniel wasn't the type to use notebooks. He used apps, notes on his phone, spreadsheets. Seeing this little book tucked among his tools felt strange, out of place. I picked it up, only planning to move it. But curiosity pulled at me. I hesitated. It was his private, but my eyes didn't listen. The first page was titled, Winter, Clothing, Kids. Below it was a list: puffer coats, hats, mittens, thermal underwear, socks, all checked off neatly with quantities, to sets of everything. I frowned and turned another page. Christmas gift ideas: plush toys, toy trains, art supplies, Barbie family set, programmable robot, wireless headphones. Another page listed numbers for a pediatric dentist, school prep center, and even a private tutor. My breath hitched. What is this? These notes went back 5 years, long before Daniel and I even met. His earliest lists were from a time I didn't exist in his life. And more recent entries were just days old. Another list of Christmas gifts, summer clothes, a vacation packing list. A horrible thought struck me. Daniel had children I didn't know about. A secret family. I tried to reason. Maybe they were for friends' kids, or maybe donations. But deep down, I knew he'd never once mentioned kids. And yet, these lists were detailed, thoughtful, almost loving. I thought about all the work trips he took every summer, always near the coast, always refusing to take me because it's all work. Was that true? Or was he with them? I clutched the notebook, suddenly aware of my fast breathing. Daniel was the most open man I'd ever met. He smiled easily. Helped everyone, came home on time, never hid his phone or passwords. I trusted him fully. But this notebook, it felt like someone else's life. A life I didn't know about. A life he never shared with me. I checked the time. I was already supposed to be at work, meeting the inspectors before or anyone else. But instead, I stood barefoot on the balcony holding, what? Proof of what? I didn't know yet. But it felt like betrayal. I set the notebook on the kitchen table and sat down, my fingers trembling. I didn't want to read more. I didn't want to dig deeper. But my fear and curiosity were louder than my will. I flipped more pages, each one hitting me like a punch. Summer lists with swimsuits, floaties, sunscreen, tiny first aid kits with dosages carefully written. I could picture him writing all this down, thinking ahead, caring for children. My chest ached. Daniel knew I couldn't have kids. I told him that before we married, scared he'd walk away. But he didn't. He held my hands, looked me in the eyes, and said, I love you. We'll make our own kind of family. And now, this, another life. A life with kids that weren't mine. Maybe they weren't even his. But if that were true, why keep it a secret? I stared at the notebook, my heart pounding. I couldn't wait for tonight. I needed answers now. I called my boss, my voice shaking. and told her I was sick. She wasn't happy, but said she'd cover for me. I placed the notebook right in the center of the table. If he meant to keep this hidden, he couldn't anymore. I'd wait for him, and I'd get the truth. As I sat waiting for Daniel to come home, I couldn't stop looking at that notebook. But my thoughts wandered far beyond it. They drifted to the life I thought I'd left behind. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, where everyone knew everyone and secrets never stayed secret for long. My parents raised me to believe in working hard and doing the right thing. I wanted to make them proud. I wanted to help people. That's why I became a teacher. First grade. Bright-eyed kids learning their ABCs, tying their shoes, laughing at my silly songs. But in truth, I wasn't cut out for it. I loved the kids. But the noise, the pressure, the sad stories of children coming to school hungry, it slowly broke me. I went home each day drained and full of doubt. After 3 years, I quit. My parents were shocked, disappointed, maybe. But I told myself it was just temporary. I'd find another way to make a difference. I moved to the city and got a job in stable, quiet, safe. Then I met someone, not Daniel, someone else. He seemed charming at first. We dated a few times, and I let myself fall too fast. I was lonely, craving something real. He told me he was separated from his wife. I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to. 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. I told him that night, expecting maybe shock, maybe even happiness. But he laughed. Amanda, I have a wife and 2 kids. I'm not leaving them. You knew what this was. No, I hadn't known. I had planned my whole future with him, and in just 1 sentence, he destroyed it. I sat in my apartment all night, holding my belly, staring at the walls. I wanted to keep the baby. I believed I could do it alone. But I was living paycheck to paycheck in a tiny 1-bedroom, no support. And I couldn't face going back to my small town as the girl who got pregnant by a married man. So I made the hardest choice of my life. The procedure didn't go smoothly. I got a serious infection. Emergency surgery followed. Then came the doctor's words that crushed me. You won't be able to carry children again. I'm sorry. For weeks, I barely moved. I cried until I had nothing left. I hated myself, hated my choices, hated the silence in that apartment. I swore I'd never let anyone in like that again. Years later, I met Daniel. I still carried the guilt like a weight in my chest. We met at work. He was consulting for our IT department. Calm, steady, warm. I told him about my infertility before we got serious, thinking he'd leave. But he didn't. He held my hand and said, Amanda, I love you for who you are, not what you can or can't give me. That's when I truly fell in love. He made me believe we could still have a family in our own way. Maybe pets, maybe adoption, or maybe just the 2 of us. I thought we shared everything. I thought there were no secrets. But now this notebook, those names, those careful lists, that life I never knew. I looked at the clock. Daniel wouldn't be home for another 3 hours. My heart pounded like a drum as I tried to distract myself with chores. But I couldn't stop thinking, what if he really has children I never knew about? What if he picked me because I couldn't give him what she did? I pressed my hands to my face and tried to breathe. I had promised myself I'd never feel that kind of betrayal again. But here I was waiting, terrified of the truth. Part of me wished I'd never found that notebook at all. The apartment felt strangely quiet. No TV, no music, not even the hum of the dishwasher I usually leave running after dinner. I had turned everything off, like silence might help me think. The blue notebook sat right in the center of the kitchen table, closed, but full of meaning. I had put it there on purpose, like evidence out in the open. When Daniel came home, he'd see it. He'd know I had read it, and after that, there'd be no going back. I tried to keep myself busy. I wiped the counters twice, then rearranged the spice rack, then put it back the way it was. Every few minutes, I looked at the clock. 3:30 p.m. for 10 p.m. for 52 p.m. I still had almost an hour before Daniel's shift ended. A part of me wanted to leave and avoid whatever truth was coming. I could already hear the excuses, ones I wouldn't believe, ones that would only hurt more. Another part of me wanted to call him now, ask him everything over the phone, rip the bandage off fast. But I didn't. I waited. My thoughts wouldn't stay still. They kept jumping back to every work trip Daniel had taken over the last 3 years. Trips where he said there wasn't time for me to come. Trips where he came back tired, but strangely softer. Was he spending that time with kids? With her? Kids? I looked at my hands on the counter, remembering how he held them the day I told him I couldn't have children. Amanda, that doesn't change how I feel about you, he had said. I believed him. I still wanted to believe him. But the lists in that notebook, they weren't for charity. They were personal. My phone buzzed. A text. Daniel, on my way. You okay? I stared at the message, then typed back, yeah, we need to talk. The typing dots came up, disappeared, came back, then nothing, no reply. At 5:45, I heard his keys at the door. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would break my ribs. I held the edge of the counter as Daniel walked in. His usual warm smile faded when he saw my face, then saw the notebook on the table. He froze. For a second, I saw something in his eyes. Panic, maybe guilt. He set down his bag slowly, carefully, like someone walking up to a wild animal. You found it, he said quietly. I nodded, my voice shaking. Daniel, what is this? These lists? The kids' clothes. Ties. Dentist numbers. Who are they for? He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the notebook, his shoulders dropping like he was holding something heavy. Then he looked at me. It's a long story, he said softly, one I should have told you a long time ago. He pulled out a chair and sat down, folding his hands. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked older, tired, unsure. Please, Amanda, let me explain. I sat down across from him, my heart racing. I knew whatever he said next would change everything. Daniel's hands shook a little as he opened the notebook and flipped through the pages like they weren't even his. He stopped on one, pressed his fingers on it like he needed strength. I should have told you this before we got married, he said quietly. But I didn't. Because I was afraid you'd see me differently, and I didn't think it would still matter. Daniel, my voice came out softer than I thought. Just tell me. He took a deep breath, eyes on the table. Her name was Emily Hartman. I met her right after college, when I was working at a coffee shop and waiting for my first IT job. She was smart, funny, stubborn in a good way, and beautiful. She made me feel like I could do anything. I felt a sharp wave of jealousy, but I stayed quiet. We dated for almost 2 years. He continued, but Emily had a hard life. Her grandmother raised her, and they didn't have much money. When her grandmother got sick, the hospital bills kept piling up. I tried to help, Amanda, but I was just a kid with student loans and a part-time job. He sighed. Then she met someone else, a rich man, Sergey. He said he'd pay for her grandmother's care, give her the life she thought I couldn't. She married him. You asked her, I said. Daniel nodded. She did, and it crushed me. But I told myself she deserved stability. Maybe he could give her more than I could. His voice cracked. But it wasn't stability. Sergey was controlling, jealous, dangerous. I didn't know at first. She stopped talking to me after the wedding. I thought she was happy. I folded my hands, feeling the weight in my chest. What happened? 3 years ago, Daniel said. I was far away. I ran into her at the grocery store. She had 2 kids with her, Liam and Chloe. Her face lit up when she saw me. But I saw something else in her eyes. Fear. That night, she called me. He said. She said Sergey was hurting her. She wanted to leave, but didn't know how. She begged me not to tell anyone. I covered my mouth, my chest aching. She said she'd call again. But she never did, he said, voice tight. A month later, she was gone. Sergey killed her. He claimed it was an accident during a fight. But the jury didn't believe him. He's in prison for life now. And the kids? I whispered, looking at the notebook. Yes, Daniel nodded. Eyes full of tears. They had no one. Her grandmother was too old to raise them alone. I'm not their dad, Amanda. But I felt like I had to do something. I couldn't save Emily. I could make sure her kids had warm coats, toys, school supplies. I send money. I visit when I can. I take them on trips in the summer so their grandma can rest. It's not guilt anymore. It's love. Liam and Chloe didn't ask for this. I looked at him. My heart split in two. One part of me understood. The other part hurt. Hurt because he never told me. Because every time I asked about his summer trips, he just said, just work. You should have told me. I said, barely above a whisper. I know, he said, wiping his eyes. I was scared. I thought you'd see it as betrayal. I didn't want you to think I was living a double life. I looked again at the notebook. Were you still in love with her? Daniel looked at me, steady even with tears. No, I loved her once. But she made her choice. I moved on. I built a life with you because I love you, Amanda. That hasn't changed. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But my chest still ached. I had questions. I felt unsure. Why hide it, then? If it wasn't a secret, why keep the lists hidden? Daniel, I can't have kids. You knew that. You said it didn't matter. But all this time, you were spending your summers with someone else's children. Do you know how that feels? He leaned forward, voice cracking. Amanda, please. It's not about replacing something we don't have. It's about doing what's right for them. I thought I was protecting you from that past. But I see now, I just made it worse. The silence between us was heavy, full of words I couldn't say. I closed my eyes and took a shaky breath. I need time. Daniel, I need to think. He nodded slowly, pain on his face. Take all the time you need. I'll tell you everything, every detail if that's what you want. No more secrets. Just don't give up on us, please. I didn't answer. My hands were cold and shaking. My life had just changed in one conversation, and I didn't know how to feel about it. After his confession, the apartment felt colder, like the truth had pulled all the warmth out of the room. Daniel sat quietly, watching me, waiting for a reply I didn't have. I finally stood, my legs weak, and walked to the bedroom. I closed the door and leaned against it, sledding down until I sat on the floor. My hands shook. My heart was pounding like I'd just run a race. I asked for honesty and I got it. But somehow, the truth felt heavier than the lie ever did. Emily Hartman. Her name echoed in my head like a ghost. She was gone. But somehow, she was still here in my home, in my marriage, in the secret Daniel had carried every summer. She was everywhere, and I hated that I felt jealous of a woman who wasn't even alive. I stood in front of the mirror above the dresser. My eyes were red, my face pale. I spoke to my reflection. You're being silly, Amanda. He didn't cheat. He didn't lie about loving you. My voice broke. He just didn't let you in. That was what hurt the most. Not that he helped kids who needed him, but that he went through it all alone. Like I couldn't handle his past. Like I wasn't strong enough to share it with him. But deep down, maybe he was right. Because the moment I saw those lists, all I could think about was what I couldn't give him: children, family. Things he clearly cared about so much that he kept going back to them, even if they weren't his. I placed a hand on my stomach. The old pain returned. I remembered the cold clinic room, the smell, the doctor's words. You won't be able to carry children again. I'm sorry. I thought I'd lost my future then. Daniel was the one who made me believe I still had one, that we could build a life on love, not biology. I believed him. But now, I couldn't stop picturing him holding Liam's hand at the beach, Chloe on his shoulders. I could see them laughing, making memories. A family, even if it wasn't legal, and not mine. I wiped my eyes and walked out of the bedroom. Daniel was still at the table. elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. He looked up when he heard me. "Amanda," he said, his voice rough. "Please say something." I swallowed hard. "I don't even know where to start." He stood slowly. "Start anywhere. Yell at me. Throw something. Just don't shut me out." But I couldn't yell. I couldn't even feel angry. Just a dull pain in my chest. "You build a whole second life," I said quietly. "And didn't think I should be part of it." Daniel winced. "That's not what I meant. I thought I was sparing you pain." I shook my head. "You didn't spare me. You made me wonder if I was enough." His face fell. "Amanda, you are enough. You've always been enough. I love you. Then why didn't you trust me?" My voice broke. He stepped forward, but I raised my hand. I wasn't ready to be touched. "I need space," I whispered. Daniel nodded, eyes wet. "Take it. Do whatever you need. Just, please don't give up on us." I turned away, holding the doorframe to steady myself. My chest hurt. I didn't want to give up. I loved him. But love doesn't erase the sting of secrets. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The blue notebook still sat on the table like a quiet witness. My thoughts swirled with jealousy, sadness, and something else. A strange curiosity. Liam and Chloe, what did they think of Daniel? Did they love him? Did they call him Dad? And what would they think of me? I didn't sleep. Instead, I made a decision. One I wasn't sure I'd regret. I would meet them. I needed to see the life Daniel had been living without me. The next morning, Daniel looked surprised when I said I wanted to meet them. He searched my face for anger, but only found resolve. "You don't have to," he said gently. "I do," I said. "If we're moving forward, I need to know them. I need to see what this means to you." We drove quietly along the coast. The October air was crisp. The ocean showed between the trees. I tried to focus on the view, but my mind kept going back to the notebook. Daniel's hand rested near mine. His fingers twitched like he wanted to hold it, but wasn't sure. I didn't take it. Not yet. We pulled into a quiet neighborhood. A white house sat at the end. Flowers lined the walkway. An older woman stood on the porch, her gray hair tied neatly. She waved as we parked. "That's Margaret," Daniel said, "Emily's grandmother." Margaret smiled. "Daniel," she said warmly. Then to me, "You must be Amanda." I nodded. "It's nice to meet you." Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and soap. Dos sat in the corner. Crayon drawings covered a wall. A small voice came from the hallway. "Uncle Daniel." Liam ran into the room, 6 years old, full of energy and bright eyes. He hugged Daniel's waist. Daniel knelt and hugged him back, his face softer than I'd ever seen. Then a little girl peeked out from behind the couch. Chloe, 4 years old, curly brown hair. She clutched a stuffed rabbit and stared at me with wide eyes. Daniel smiled. "Come say hi, Chloe. This is Amanda." She hesitated, then stepped forward. Still holding the bunny, she looked up and whispered, "Hi, Chloe," I said, kneeling. "I love your bunny." "What's his name?" She smiled shyly. "Mr. Buttons." "That's a perfect name," I said. Her face softened. She touched my hand, then gently slipped hers into mine. A small gesture, but it went straight to my heart. Margaret watched quietly. "They've been through a lot," she said. "But Daniel's been a blessing. I don't know what I'd do without him." I looked at Daniel, now listening to Liam talk about a Lego spaceship. He wasn't helping just out of guilt. He loved those kids. That much was clear. And for the first time, I didn't feel jealous. I just felt sad. Sad for Emily, the kids, for Daniel who carried it alone, and for myself for fearing the past instead of seeing the present. Later, in the backyard, Chloe tugged my sleeve. "Will you come back?" she asked. I blinked back tears. "If that's okay with you, I'd like to." She smiled, and something inside me opened, not broke, just opened. On the way home, Daniel reached for my hand. This time, I let him. "I'm sorry I kept this from you," he said. I squeezed his hand. "We'll figure it out together." And for the first time since finding the notebook, I actually believed it. In the weeks that followed, things were quieter between us. But it wasn't distant silence. It was the kind of silence that comes when you're learning to listen again. We started spending weekends in Portland, sometimes taking Margaret out, sometimes giving her a break. I expected it to be awkward, but Liam and Chloe accepted me faster than I thought. The first time Liam said my name, I felt warmth. The first time Chloe held my hand without fear, that warmth grew. One Saturday morning, we baked cookies in Margaret's kitchen. Liam threw flour everywhere. Chloe carefully added chocolate chips. Daniel laughed when I got dough on my face. I saw him smiling a real smile, not nervous or guilty, but full of peace. "You're really good with them," he said gently. I shrugged, blinking back tears. I didn't think I would be. I thought it would hurt more. I paused. "But it doesn't, Daniel. It feels right." He reached for my flour-dusted hand and squeezed. "They like you, Amanda, more than you know." Later, while the cookies baked and the house filled with warm, sweet air, Chloe climbed onto my lap with a coloring book. She held up a crayon drawing of 4 people standing under a bright sun, 1 tall man, 1 older woman, a small girl, and a boy, and next to them, a woman with long hair holding the girl's hand. "That's you," Chloe said shyly, pointing to the woman. "You're part of our family now." Something inside me broke wide open. I had spent so long believing I could never be a mother that my chance at family had ended in a sterile clinic years ago. But here I was, holding a little girl who saw me as hers, and it felt real. Daniel crouched beside us, his hand resting gently on my back. His voice was low, full of something I couldn't quite name. "Amanda, I know this isn't the life you pictured. It's not what I pictured either. But maybe this is better." I looked at him, then at Chloe, then at Liam spinning in circles with a paper airplane, and I knew he was right. This wasn't the family I imagined, but maybe it was the one I needed. That night, on the drive home, Daniel reached for my hand again, and this time I held on tight, not because I was afraid of losing him, but because I wanted to hold on to that moment, that feeling of quiet belonging, for the first time in years. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel like the woman who couldn't have children, or the woman haunted by old mistakes. I felt like someone who had stepped into something healing. When we got home, Daniel pulled me into a hug and whispered, "Thank you for giving them a chance, and for giving me one too." I rested my head on his shoulder and let out a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding. "I'm done running from the past, Daniel," I said. "Let's just be here now." And for the first time, I truly meant it. Months passed. What once felt like an open wound slowly became something softer, something I could carry without pain. We visited Liam and Chloe almost every weekend. Sometimes Daniel took them to the park while I stayed with Margaret, sipping tea as she told stories about Emily, her bright, stubborn daughter who loved books and hated carrots. Other times, we all baked together or went for walks by the rocky coast. It didn't take long before the kids acted like I had always been there. Liam proudly showed me every Lego build and school drawing. Chloe climbed into my lap at story time like it was her usual spot. The first time she called me Mommy, it wasn't planned. She was sleepy as I carried her up the stairs. "Good night, Mommy," she mumbled. I froze, heart swelling so fast it hurt. Daniel saw my face and smiled gently, eyes shining. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. That night in the car, I turned to Daniel and said, "I thought I lost my chance to be a mom forever." My voice was quiet, but somehow I didn't. "It just looks different than I imagined." He squeezed my hand. "That's because you didn't lose anything, Amanda. You gained something new." And he was right. Healing rarely looks the way we expect. It's not always about getting back what was lost. Sometimes it's about finding something new, something you didn't even know you needed. I still carry my past with me, the pain, the mistakes, the day a doctor told me I'd never have children. But when I think about the future now, I don't feel empty. I feel Liam's small hand in mine. I hear Chloe's laugh as she colors outside the lines. I see Daniel looking at me not with guilt, but with love. This isn't the life I once imagined, but it's the one I'm thankful for every single day. So if you're listening to this and holding on to an old hurt, afraid you'll never feel whole again, maybe healing isn't about going back. Maybe it's about looking forward, about opening your heart to something different, something better. Because sometimes family isn't who you're born to, it's who you choose, and I choose this one.